somewhere between the 10th skincare launch of the month and the algorithmically perfected 10-step routine, millions of people unknowingly declared war on their own faces, and the skin has been losing ever since. This is not a coincidence. There is a very specific reason skin sensitivity is skyrocketing across every demographic, and it has everything to do with something called the skin barrier, arguably the most important and most misunderstood structure in all of skincare. Understanding what it is, why it keeps getting damaged, and how to actually fix it could be the difference between skin that thrives and skin that is constantly in crisis mode. The skin barrier, known clinically as the stratum corneum, is the outermost layer of the skin. Think of it like a brick wall. The skin cells are the bricks, and the lipids, ceramides, cholesterol, fatty acids, are the mortar holding everything together. This structure has one primary job: keep the good stuff in and the bad stuff out. Moisture stays inside the skin. Irritants, bacteria, pollution, and allergens stay outside. When this system is working correctly, skin looks calm, plump, and resilient. When it breaks down, everything changes. A compromised skin barrier cannot retain water properly. That leads to transepidermal water loss, which is the technical term for moisture simply evaporating out of the skin. The result is tightness, flaking, and a dull appearance. But it goes further than aesthetics. Without that protective layer functioning as intended, the skin becomes hypersensitive to everything it comes into contact with, including products that would normally be completely harmless. Sunscreen starts stinging, moisturizer causes redness, even water can feel irritating. This is the clinical picture of barrier dysfunction, and it is becoming the norm rather than the exception. So what is causing this mass barrier breakdown? The answer is layered, and the first major culprit is over-exfoliation. The skincare content explosion across social media has convinced millions of people that the path to glowing skin is constant exfoliation. Chemical exfoliants like AHAS and BHAS are genuinely effective ingredients, but the messaging around them has pushed people toward daily use at high concentrations. Glycolic acid, lactic acid, salicylic acid. These are acids, and using multiple acids in the same routine, or using them daily without adequate recovery time, strips away the very lipids that hold the barrier together. The skin never gets a chance to rebuild. The second culprit is ingredient overloading. Skincare has become something people build and layer the way others curate outfits. Vitamin C, retinoids, niacinamide, peptides, hyaluronic acid, benzoyl peroxide, all in the same routine, sometimes all at once. Some of these combinations actively destabilize each other. Others are individually powerful, but collectively overwhelming for skin that has not been properly conditioned. The barrier gets hit from multiple directions with no time to adapt. Third is the influence of aesthetics-driven skincare culture. Certain trends have glorified the idea of skin that looks freshly peeled, glass skin, wet skin, poreless skin. Achieving that look in the short term often requires aggressive treatment. What the trend does not show is the long-term consequence of repeatedly stripping and stressing the skin's surface. Inflammation becomes chronic. Redness becomes permanent. The skin starts behaving less like resilient tissue and more like an open wound. There is also a significant hormonal and environmental layer to this. Chronic stress, poor sleep, and a diet high in processed foods all affect skin barrier function at a physiological level. Elevated cortisol from stress disrupts the skin's lipid synthesis. Environmental pollution generates free radicals that degrade barrier components. Climate extremes, both excessive cold and excessive heat, accelerate transepidermal water loss. People living in modern, high-stress environments are already starting from a compromised baseline, which means even relatively moderate skincare mistakes can push their skin over the edge into reactive territory. Dermatologists and skin researchers use a term called sensitized skin to distinguish it from clinically sensitive skin that is driven by genetics. Sensitized skin is an acquired condition. It is something that happens to skin that was previously normal or even resilient, caused by external factors over time. The fact that sensitized skin is showing up in populations that historically had fewer skin complaints, including people in their 20s with no prior skin conditions, points directly to behavioral and environmental causes rather than genetics. The good news is that the barrier is not permanently damaged in most cases. It can recover, but the recovery requires doing something that feels counterintuitive to people who are used to constantly doing more to their skin. Stripping everything back and letting the skin breathe. Dermatologists refer to this as barrier repair protocol, and the core principles are consistent. Step 1 is eliminating all actives. No acids, no retinoids, no vitamin C, nothing with significant bioactivity. Step 2 is simplifying the routine to 3 steps maximum. A gentle, non-foaming cleanser that does not disrupt the skin's pH, a barrier-focused moisturizer, and a mineral sunscreen during the day. Step 3 is giving this stripped-down routine genuine time to work. Not a few days, multiple weeks. The ingredients that have the strongest evidence behind them for barrier repair are ceramides, fatty acids, and cholesterol, specifically because they match the composition of what the barrier naturally produces. Products containing these 3 in the right ratio have been shown in clinical studies to measurably restore barrier function. Ingredients like Centella asiatica, panthenol, and colloidal oatmeal also have solid evidence behind them for calming inflammatory responses and supporting recovery. One of the most important things to understand is that barrier repair is not glamorous. The results do not show up on day 2 or day 3. There are no dramatic before and after transformation photos happening in the first week. What happens instead is gradual stabilization. Stinging stops. Redness decreases. The skin becomes less reactive to everything. Eventually, the texture improves and the overall appearance improves. But it happens slowly, and patience is genuinely required. There is also a psychological component worth acknowledging. People with reactive, sensitized skin often develop what researchers have started calling skincare anxiety, a kind of hypervigilance about ingredients, products, and reactions that creates its own stress feedback loop. Every new product becomes a potential threat. Every ingredient label becomes a source of confusion or fear. That anxiety itself, through the stress cortisol pathway mentioned earlier, can actually worsen the skin condition. Breaking the cycle requires not just changing the products, but changing the entire relationship with the routine. The broader lesson here is that the skincare industry has been incredibly effective at selling complexity. More steps, more active ingredients, more targeted products for every micro concern. That complexity generates revenue, and it also, in many cases, generates the exact skin problems that then require even more products to address. The barrier crisis happening right now is partly a market-created problem. Healthy skin is actually fairly simple to maintain when it has been allowed to recover. A minimal routine, adequate hydration from the inside, sun protection every single day, and a stress management approach that does not discount the skin as a stress-responsive organ. These are the fundamentals that dermatology research consistently supports. The skin barrier is not a trend. It is not a marketing concept. It is a biological system that has kept human skin functional for thousands of years, and it works best when it is respected rather than constantly challenged. The current epidemic of irritated, reactive faces is not a mystery. It is a predictable outcome of decades worth of messaging that more is always better. The answer, backed by clinical evidence and increasingly by dermatological consensus, is the opposite of more. It is less. It is intentional. And it starts with giving the skin the one thing the industry rarely wants to sell: time to simply heal. Subscribe if you want the truth about skincare, beauty devices, and the treatments behind confident skin.